Welcome to Screaming in the Cloud. I'm Corey Quinn, and today my guest is something of a member of the pantheon of FinOps royalty, if I can abuse two metaphors and smash them together. J.R. Storment is the executive director of the FinOps Foundation, but also one of the OG folks in the space. You were a co-founder of Cloudability. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and avoiding strangling me.
Thank you, Corey. I got to say, it's super surreal to be here because, as some of the audience may not know, you and I were kind of on like opposite ends of this spectrum in terms of what we thought about the space in the early days. And it's like really great that you've invited me to be here because it's like getting to know you and your process has been an amazing part of the last few years.
We've been passing like ships in the night for a very long time. Even before the FinOps Foundation existed, I had a bit of insecurity around it where I go and I talk to these companies as an independent consultant pre-Duckbill and like, oh, so you do what Cloudability does. It's like, yeah, but I'm better looking and it doesn't work. But I do remember that you were very kind and sat down with me for half an hour or so at reInvent at a bar years ago. And it was so validating because we were talking shop and so many of the things that I had a strong suspicion on. At one point, my comment was, oh yeah, it feels like a strong majority of the spend, despite all the stuff they talk about, is just EC2. Maybe that's just the small number of customers I talk to. And you busted out your phone with data on it. It's like, there's a reason you think this. It was so validating. And I appreciated your taking the time to talk to someone that frankly was more than a little annoying in a bunch of different ways.
Your brand of snark, though, is one that I've also actually been not annoyed by, but intimidated by, I'll say, because I'll say at the start of this, you've always been a lot funnier than I am, and you've been much better on the camera and on the podcast. And so I've actually, from the long time, and I'm being very honest and direct here, like, I was also intimidated and by you and what you were doing because I saw you as sort of the better version of me who was out there able to like get the jokes going and actually dig deep at this stuff. And I think, to the conversation that you and I had way back then and sort of over the years, it's kind of the reason that when I left the platform space, I got into this, which was technology doesn't really solve the problems. There's actually like a whole bunch of cultural, learning, company, organizational stuff that like guys like you have been doing with those organizations for a long time. And so, yeah, when I left the platform world, it was like, I want to get closer to guys like you and what you're doing.
I had no idea. I just assumed you're like, oh boy, I need to find something more depressing than cloud billing. I know, nonprofit world. We're going to dive into that and see what happens.
I did not expect this to go where it went. Honestly, yeah, I thought it was going to be like a side thing while I figured out what was next and I put a little time into it and the foundation just kind of grew up really quickly.
History's not yet written. It couldn't just be this thing you detoured in for a decade or two and as a side project while you figured out what was next. It turned out what was next was retirement. And okay, we can workshop the narrative. It worked out.
I'm 6 years into it now, and I see a path for the next 3 to 4 years. So it might just end up being a decade. How long have you been in this?
Oh, dear Lord. I got surprise fired from BlackRock, the best way to get fired, in the second half of 2016. I spent some time puttering around, but beginning of 2017 is when I really got serious about it. Figured it'd be an 18-month side project. Wound up, after 18 months, taking a few interviews at various places. Got an offer from Amazon.
I've heard about this.
Yeah.
The famous offer, yes.
Yeah, it was weird because I interviewed there twice. One was 6 months beforehand. And they're like, no, because they do have hiring standards. 6 months later, I interviewed for a different role, got the offer, turned it down because of their crappy non-compete. But the original hiring manager, who is in the space, Keith Jarrett, for years, thought that I was just telling lies about like, we didn't hire you. What's the deal with this? And I told him in a car ride at reInvent one year, he's like, wait, you looped a second time? He's like, oh, wow, I had a very different opinion of this. Why would I lie about something so banal?
Well, this is, I think, maybe vindication for both of us, because I feel like this whole space that we're in, which, by the way, you did not want to say the name of this space. I remember you tweeted at some point, I was very hurt. I think you said, I shall not say FinOps. I shan't say FinOps. And for the longest time, I was like, God damn that Corey, he's trying to like cut.
I hate the term and it won. And I will be fair. A lot of this comes from my historical background, hating the idea of DevOps as a job title.
Okay, yeah.
I called it cloud economics, which is very intentional because like I'm a cloud economist. What does that mean? Well, it's 2 words no one understands. Cloud is a bunch of other people's computers, and economist means I claim to know a lot about money and dress like a flood victim, put them together, and no one knows what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah,
anymore.
It makes sense. Well, look, I didn't create the term FinOps, and I wasn't a big fan of it either when I saw it. But when I saw it, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Naming things is hard, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
there's all this stuff that people have been doing. Like they're like operating in cloud differently. They're trying to integrate that into the business. Engineers are like, cost, what is this? The finance people say, cloud, what is this? And when it started to kind of like pop in there, I was like, okay, this may be an annoying name because, by the way, it's a portmanteau, right? Just like DevOps, it's not actually financial operations. It was clear like it's the short version. And I mean, I had a lot of those conversations in the early days as we were out there talking about this stuff. People were like, no, I'm never going to say that, bro. No, I hate that. And then by the end of the lunch, they'd be using it because it's just shorter.
I have pivoted on this even in our marketing now. And the thing that changed is our customers started calling it that. And I'm not going to fight that particular tide. But I called myself a cloud economist, and I'm sure you don't remember this, but back when the FinOps Foundation originally launched at an event you threw in San Francisco and invited me to
2019.
Yeah. I'm like, this is great. Like, can I join? You're like, well, you're a vendor. No, it's like at the time you were at Cloudability. And like, well, I have some opinions on this, but you sat me next to Owen Rogers at the time at 451.
Yeah.
Before he went to, I want to say S&P acquired them, but
so, yeah.
Ancient history. But he apparently had a PhD in what he had retconned as cloud economics. He's like, oh, good, someone else I can talk about the deep academic structures of this. And it's like, okay, I have two paths before me. I can come clean and talk. I was like, all right, I made the title up because nothing else seemed to fit.
It's a good title.
Or I can try and white guy bluff my way through it, where at that point I wind up like with a book deal or something. And this was before LLM, so I came clean rather than overconfidently sounding wrong. And here we are.
Yeah.
And here we are right now, where we have just seen the 2026 State of FinOps report. There were a lot of trends evidenced in it. Few surprises, but one that I'm going to hit you on because why not? There are two different approaches: AI for FinOps and FinOps for AI. And some of those, one of them, and I don't remember which, was the top of the list of concerns, and one was 6 items down. But in spot checking, talking to folks who are in the FinOps world, people always forget which one is which. So I have questions as to how accurate the relative placement of those two things are.
Okay. Well, I should disclaimer that those rankings vary greatly if you look at what people are doing today, what their absolute pain point is, like today, Monday morning when I walk in, versus what they're being asked to consider and what they're afraid of in the coming 12 months. And I would say the thing that everybody wants to talk about, because it's super sexy and it's fun and, like automation, it's going to take all of our jobs away, is AI for FinOps, which is how do I use the AIs to get better at the FinOps. But the thing that people are actually struggling more with now is the FinOps for AI, which is like, I've got all this AI, I'm not sure what I'm getting out of it. I don't know what the value is. I can't forecast it. I can't allocate it. It's very much like, I don't know, Amazon in 2013 before we had billing data or something like that. So we're at that same point. So the two sides of the coin are obviously connected. And I think everybody really wants to push, and from a vendor and practitioner side, like how do we use this new technology to, I don't know, even get rid of FinOps? But we're not really seeing that materialize yet. We're seeing the how do we use the FinOps principles to apply to a new type of spend that we're being asked to manage, and a type of spend that is, going up faster than cloud probably since 2013.
Yeah, the numbers are smaller, but the growth rate is meteoric.
Which is exactly what we were saying 10 to 15 years ago about cloud. Like it's a tiny portion of your IT, but the numbers are
5 to 7% of infrastructure spend right now is on AI-ish, but it's hard to say because what counts as an AI service? I saw an Amazon job ad years ago that called S3 an AI service. So we're just making stuff up now. Yeah. It is a differentiator. I do all kinds of nonsense with AI because why not? I think that there's some whimsy to it that people are sleeping on. But I'll use the Anthropic API directly instead of using the same model, same cost through Bedrock. And the only reason I do that is Anthropic will let you spin out an API key for a project and show you what the cost against that API key is in near real time, as opposed to get a good night's sleep, and then Amazon will tell you the same thing if you set it up correctly. So when, this may shock you, I wrote some crappy code and it started eating itself and burned through $15 in credits, I knew what app was doing it. And when I thought I fixed it but didn't, I found out real quick.
Well, so that what you're doing right there is exactly what I think we're seeing people do more today than what's coming is we've cut our teeth on how to do this for Amazon. We cut our teeth on how to do it Google and Azure and OCI, wherever we are. And now it's like, wait, this isn't like a whole new set of concepts we need to come up with. We just need to, and hopefully, it's your Anthropic example, there's better billing data examples than we had in the early days. Because when we were starting all this, for you and me, a lot of people in this a long time, I mean, FinOps didn't really come to be until we had the proper billing data from the providers that we could do things like allocate down to the resource, down to the second, figure out what things were applied where. And we're entering a world where you've got all these AI services that are consumption-based, which makes them very cloud-like. And as a side note, we're getting a bunch of SaaS services now that through their application of AI models are becoming much more cloud-like. Everything is now sort of built on what you use, which is breaking a lot of models of what has traditionally been seat-based licensing and these things. But all that's to say, these are kind of solved problems in FinOps land, right? It's like you get the data early into the hands of engineers in your example. You try and, forecast that based on some allocation. You figure out where there's waste and inefficiencies. Like you tie that back to executive priorities. These are things that companies have been doing for years on the big clouds. And now it's like, let's apply it to
You make
AI.
sure that the engineers are brought to care about it in the proper strategic way. I have this problem myself all the time where left to my own devices, I'll sit here and try and golf $10 a month off my $50 development account and I'll forget the whole, oh, right. I cost money, don't I? I embezzle that in office supplies every week. It's fine. Although with a partial remote office, it's a little more justifiable. Yeah, exactly. It's just one pocket of the other pocket. Don't tell the investors. They won't mind. Like that has been a significant shift is watching folks care about it. The other side of the coin is, I'm going to build an AI bot that will optimize your cloud environment. And I have yet to see one of those that was not abjectly terrifying. It works for the common, simple case, but the edge cases cut you to ribbons. I have a number of people now have demonstrated them to me and shown demos. It's like, cool, even in your contrived demo, here are the edge cases where in a certain context, it just caused more problems than it fixed.
Well, and not to continue to be even more the gray hair guy, but I just flashing back to 2015, 2016, 2017, where the hot sauce and what was to become FinOps was automating actions, and people were starting to do that. And there were a set of tools that did that, and platforms I worked on did that for a while. And the actions were very valuable in theory. And if they were operating in a perfect, pristine, clean environment where everything was known and, but in the end, people struggled to automate a lot of the things because there were, edge cases.
Or perceived edge cases.
Perceived edge cases. There were fears, there were trust, there was security. And I feel like we're kind of right back there again, where I will say my mind has been changed in the last 18 months a bit on LLMs and chatbots even for understanding data. Because 2 years ago, people were like, well, throw a chatbot on it. I'm like, that's dumb. I don't want to chat with a chatbot. But now I'm like, oh, shoot, you can get some really interesting insights out of that. So I think they
need to be validated because they're not always correct, but it gives you interesting threads to pull on, I think is the right way of doing it.
Exactly. So I think there actually might be some juice that is coming now from even that chatbot approach with FinOps, but there's still are you going to throw agentic against managing your infrastructure? Maybe down the road, but there might be some trust issues in the meantime.
I have always been surprised every time I talk to a customer. It hits anew where so much of this is about psychology more than it is about arithmetic. My first big customer in 2017, they needed to buy, back in those days, RIs, $18 million was the right buy. And that's a scary number. No one wants to hit more than they're likely going to make in the course of their career on the buy now button. So they hem and haw and analyze it for 4 months. It's, look, you're going to spend the money one way or the other. Maybe it's not the right number. Great. Cut it in half, make the buy, see what happens. Also, I know this works with AWS and it works with other clouds as well. Okay, once you figure out what your buy is, they have a concierge team you can have make the purchase for you. Well, why would I do that? Because when someone screws it up, and they will, you definitely want it to be on them to fix it and make it right, rather than you sweating blood, wondering if, you're about to lose the entire contract and get sued into oblivion because someone selected the wrong region. That wasn't me. That was the concierge group. They fixed it because it was their mess up. They're the cloud provider. They can make it work on the back end. I don't want to have to call in favors every other month because I didn't read a spreadsheet properly.
Your story there is super reminded me of one of the first FinOpsy talks I gave in 2017 to reInvent, and it was about a giant RI buy with 7 figures that went wrong. And it went wrong because somebody misread the data, and they made a big purchase, and they were bringing their own Red Hat licenses, but they bought standard Linux, and they bought the RIs, and they sat back and they waited for some number of months and didn't pay attention to anything, and suddenly the bill was twice because they had the RIs and they had these things still being used. But that's kind of the point of this stuff is FinOps as a discipline, I like to talk about not as about technology. It's a people cultural discipline, and that's good and bad. The bad part is people make dumb mistakes, right? And they're hurrying and they're rushing. But the good part is, and I think a lot of the ethos and conversation in the space has shifted, is it's less about cutting costs, which is the RI lever, and it's more about and AI is a great example of this. How do I get the right value out of this stuff? And some of that all of it should tie back to the business strategy and things, but some of it has to be like conversations between teams about like, why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing this because we're getting pushed from the board on using AI in this way. And that's okay right now because we're focused on growth, right? We're not focused on cutting.
Yeah, optimization, lowering the bill is a point solution in many cases. It's something that people care about at fixed points, and then they go back to the things that they care about. I think it's a terrible business in many respects where, oh, wow, your tool knocked 40% off my AWS bill, which is a weird marketing in itself. I mean, I cut my AWS bill by 95% by not checking my keys into GitHub anymore.
Exactly.
Who knew? But what
Which
have
is
you
not
done
even
for
a
me
joke. I've heard so many actual stories of that over the years. Yeah.
But what have you done for me lately? Oh, wow, you added a lot of value up front, but now you're just sort of maintaining it and people aren't logging into it. The tool story doesn't work as well. Also, the cloud providers themselves are getting much better at this, and the baseline level of knowledge that engineering teams have about the 1,000 weird pieces of trivia that around cost optimization are better known these days. I used to wander into large companies, and they hadn't bought our eyes in 18 months, and they were passing data back and forth like a hot potato. I don't see those large misconfigurations anymore. I see small stuff, but once you tell them about it the first time, they internalize it, and they start looking for that, and well, my job here is done. Instead, it's the ongoing, how do we predict it? How do we understand it? If we're making a commitment to external or internal, we're going to spend how many millions of dollars a year? What's the right number to commit to? There are consequences to this.
Well, you're hitting so many things in there. One of the interesting things that came out of the data from the State of FinOps this year was that while optimization is still the top like pain point priority I have today, it was much further down on what people are skilling up and looking ahead on, partly because of I think what you're talking about, which is that stuff has become a required table stake, and we've gotten a lot more mature at it. And a couple of years at the conference, we jokingly had, I think this is for you and I were buddies and you were there, but we jokingly had this phrase that was, there's no runners, because we kept hearing from people in the FinOps space, they'd be like, because we have a crawl, walk, run model of maturity. Oh, we're runners. We're really advanced. And it's like, yeah, no, you are really advanced at all the stuff that we were talking about like 2 or 3 years ago. You have gotten there. Great. You're doing your job, right? But now there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's come. And the current hot sauce, of course, example is like, well, how are you applying this stuff to your Anthropic spend? How are you applying it to your OpenAI spend? Are you using MCP in your FinOps practice? Like, these are things that the bar is constantly being, I was going to say moved, but I guess raised in this conversation.
People also are of the opinion that their organization is the only dysfunctional one out there.
Oh, they're all broken. Yeah.
Someday, I hope to have a customer who will explain their tagging strategy and coverage without sounding embarrassed while they do it. Because like, well, this is nowhere near what most of your customers have. It's like, well, I have a surprise for you.
Isn't that such a funny thing? So we have been hearing, you and I respectively, from different customers, that same challenge for over a decade.
Yes.
And everybody says, well, that's the simple problem. We'll automate that away. AI everything will take care of that. And yet no one has been able to move to that like perfect allocation model.
I will push back on that. I think that tagging is one of the few areas where there is strong AI promise, because my baseline premise is you can adjust the number however you'd like, but for conversation's sake, 80% of the time it's going to get it right and 20% of the time it's going to get it wrong. So what areas is this acceptable in? Like, well, it's going to handle our security. It's like, well, that's not going to work so well. But tagging, you're already at 0%. So you're starting from nothing. Go down that path. It's better than what you have now. And, we misallocated this one workload is usually not the kiss of death. And it's better than what you had before.
Ward Cunningham was the inventor of Wiki. He's from Portland. That's where I started the previous company. And he had a law that was how Wiki was founded, which was basically the best way to get the right answer is to propose the wrong answer.
Yes.
It's colloquially known as the blank page problem, right? And so that's what I think.
Spin up a second account and confidently assert something that is incorrect. And your PhD's dropping out of the woods to correct
Exactly.
you.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to contribute unless you say something wrong. Then I'll tell you how dumb you are, right?
Exactly.
And so in some ways, I mean, I think that's a great use case of AI. Is like, well, why don't you do the 80%, the good enough pass, and get us allocated, and then the humans will come in and be like, wait a minute, we need to clean.
Well, we're just going to lean on our engineers to make sure that they tag things right. Yeah, yelling at them hasn't worked for over a decade. Why is that suddenly going to change now?
Okay, so you didn't ask this question, but talking about state of FinOps, and one of the challenges that has always been the historic thing is like, we can't get the engineers to take action. Well, I think what we're realizing now in today's like more integrated FinOps land, where FinOps reports into the CTO or CIO, we found like 78% of the time now, where it's like part of the function of not just you need to spend less, but like this is part of your job now. It's part of being a good engineer, and the way the security is, the reliability. You need to have like, I don't know, keep the company bottom line working so we can pay your bills. And as we're getting a better integration of engineering practices with the FinOps side of it, that problem of like engineers not taking action was never really a problem that engineers were being lazy or weren't paying attention. It was they weren't being told by their boss to care about this, right? And so we're seeing that, I think, happen now where FinOps is getting positioned in a spot that they're getting guidance down from the C-suite. There's not like a seat at this executive C-suite table, but they're getting guidance about, we need you to do more AI. We need you to, oh, by the way, we used to have one cloud. Now we have three because we've signed deals. I need you to not only be efficient in those clouds, but make sure we're hitting the commitments that we've made to these clouds. Oh, and we've got a data center that we've kind of just letting sit there. We should probably like manage that a little more actively. So we're seeing these things come together into a much more consolidated practice now.
I am going to take a break here. And this episode is sponsored by, well, us over at Duckbill HQ, where we are solving problems for the large convoluted enterprise environment. I'm going to say that it is strongly endorsed by the FinOps Foundation to watch him flop sweat. Like, it's not, how do I wind up not contradicting him? But no, it started off as a consultancy. We now have a product called Skyway. We recently announced a round of funding. We're actively hiring as well. If this is something that sounds, I sure wish there were a solution for large enterprises and also a bit more whimsy in our lives when having conversations with the folks behind it, please reach out. duckbillhq.com. Remember, you can't duck the duckbill bill is absolutely not our motto because my business partner won't allow it.
Corey, we said no sales pitches. What happened, man?
Exactly. We have to pay the bills somehow.
What I can say is that Corey and Duckbill are members in good standing of the FinOps Foundation, and they focus on an area of FinOps, which is contract commitments and negotiation, that is actually quite unique as vendors go. And I'm glad you brought up that. See how I managed to not say you're great at it or anything. I just said you do it.
Exactly. Terrific. We have to upgrade our sponsorship tier for that.
Just
the FinOps Foundation, brought to you by Duckbill. Yeah, like one of the post-acquisition, like Splunk, a Cisco company at the bottom. Same approach.
Is this like a hostile takeover that you're going to be doing here?
Oh, we're all friends. How hostile could it possibly be? I'm going to need to raise a little bit more money first. But yeah, turns out we had to buy the entire Linux Foundation to pull it off.
I can connect you to some people if you need to talk to somebody. So joking aside, because I'm not as good at that as you are, so you've always focused on this contract stuff. And I see you talk about contract negotiations out there. I see you list 3-letter acronyms that I didn't think that the cloud providers wanted listed in public. We don't list those 3-letter acronyms. But I think in today's FinOps space, what you're doing is especially relevant because where it used to be like, yeah, go optimize my AWS bill. Now to that point of I've got 2 or 3 clouds already. I just heard a story from a huge like Fortune 100 tech company where like we got really good at FinOps in 3 clouds. And then this guy named Larry called our CEO and suddenly we have a 4th cloud provider and we're being told we need to shift this many workloads to it. And oh, by the way, don't miss your commitments on these other 3 cloud providers. And so suddenly people are like, I'm worried about optimization because if I miss these numbers, I'm going to pay for nothing. And so they need to get really into how do I make sure I'm getting the contracts at the right time, right place, all those things.
Oh, absolutely. And contracts are always a moving target because these things don't exist in isolation, as you allude to. It's not great, we're going to suddenly triple our use on one cloud provider. What does that imply for everything else? Because you're not an island, usually speaking. Mm-hmm. This also gets far more complicated in most of the environments I tend to work within because in all of the demos we see of the various products from the cloud providers themselves, the contrived stories, it's always basically startup or scale up environments where there's one big workload and that drives the bulk of what you do. Great. I have the majority of my customers have very large cloud estates, but there is no majority, even plurality of workloads that driving the spend. It's great. Our largest workload is 10% of our entire cloud bill. We just have several thousand workloads that need to be addressed. It changes the story of how you do these things. When you're running just one big workload, well, cost-aware architecture and optimization are awesome. We're a giant conglomerate and each environment in different clouds runs things very differently. How do you start optimizing that? It's a different story. And in many cases, the deep architectural juice isn't worth the squeeze.
I think there's a time and a place for it, right?
Of course.
And that gets to, like, we don't want to just optimize or do anything in a bubble.
The consultant,
or in a vacuum, rather.
Oh yeah, the consultant's rallying cry. It depends. So much is highly contextually dependent. it's weird because a lot of this stuff is not as hard as it is made out to be in some cases. But there is complexity to it. And especially in large environments, all of it is complicated. There are increasingly, even in the stuff that we've built, we don't have an optimization component publicly of Skyway. But on the internal version, where I was using it early on for consulting projects, everything it found that looked like a misconfiguration or something that could be optimized was listed as a curiosity. When spend goes up, it's not red. We're not presenting a frowny face because we don't have the context to know whether it's good or bad. Oh, it's really bad. Our cloud spend spiked last week when we ran the Super Bowl ad. Like, maybe that's not terrible. Wow, good news. We dropped our cloud bill to 0 by turning off production. I'm not allowed to do that, effective as it might be.
Yep.
So there's nuance to this. And when you start eroding your own expertise by not appreciating the context, complicated customers, which is most of them on some level, it erodes trust. You cannot, like, this is the consultant approach. You cannot be wrong, which sounds like I'm gearing up to be incredibly obnoxious. But in practice, what it means is, I don't know, let's find out, is my most common answer to a lot of these things. Because if I want to just be confident and wrong, well, AI can do that. I'm a white guy with a podcast. I mean, being confident and wrong, you'd think would be my shtick, but computers have supplanted me.
Yep. I'm going to go back to, you said trust.
Please.
Okay, so trust, I think, is nailing it. So the other perennial problem, allocation aside, I think in this space is I just need to understand my spending. And that seems like a solved problem now for folks like you and your customers, I think, and a lot of people in our space. But we're back to that space with AI. There's two sides to this. There's the like, everything seems different. It's all new. It's tokens. It's input. It's output. It's like, it's inference. What training? What is that? Like, there's all this new concepts, but then it's all still like usage optimization, rate optimization, and these basic things. And what we see happening, though, a lot of the time with the trust aspect, and this is one of the reasons that I think you guys are participating in this now, where we ended up launching that Focus product, which is the standard for open, what was starting as cloud usage and billing data, but has expanded pretty dramatically in the last few months, is because people don't understand billing data coming out of providers. And the perennial problem, back to the like brass or the table stakes, is everybody wants to talk about optimization. Everybody wants to talk about automation. Can we automate away the optimization? But first, the thing is like, well, what are we actually spending it? And more importantly, what are we going to be spending at the end of the year or later so we can make this commitment? And that's where we see this important like underlying, you're an AWS guy, as James Greenfield at AWS said, like Focus creates a substrate underneath of a consistent billing data so that all you smart people, whether you be vendors, consultants, practitioners, can build on top of that and get to the outcomes.
And we are. One of the most impressive things you, either personally or as a foundation, have done is driving adoption of the Focus standard across all of the hyperscalers. Like my question for always been, how did you do that? It reminds me of the old saw of every car is an Uber if you have a gun. But it's what arm twisting did you do? And it turns out that you have the ultimate arm twist available for providers, which is your members are all customers and they all care about this. Yeah. And any provider that does not at least pay some lip service to caring about the customer experience is not destined for greatness.
So yes, you could say it's an arm twist, but like, okay, so you're a startup guy officially. Sure. You build a lot of companies. I've been in that world for a lot of years too. And the thing that it's the reason I'm doing the foundation, the reason it caught me so off guard back to like, how did we start this whole thing, was there's nothing better than product market fit. There's nothing better than that moment where things just start to go, even when you're like not even pushing. And I'm really excited, like literally at this point in time with Focus, because this last 45 days, we've started to see something that is new for Focus, which is we're not twisting arms. Mm-hmm. So in the last 45 days, just randomly, we find out about new implementations that neoclouds and like AI providing the new hyperscalers are doing. So like Nebius launched Focus support without us even, we heard about it in their blog post.
Which means they don't have to reach out for help. Like, I don't understand the spec.
It's documented. It's open source. It's also they launched it on their own. We did our summit announcement last week of various things like this data FinOps and our mission change. And a few hours after that, we hear Vercel provides, I don't fully understand the services. I should have my research, but it's another AI provider, launched Focus support, and they're on the version 1.3, and they're the first provider in the world on the version 1.3. We haven't talked to them. We didn't know they were doing it, any of these things. So this is the beauty of when you find that thing that is the problem, right? And I think you guys might have this, hopefully, with what you're building as well, right? Is you put it out there and people come to it. And the fun part, and this is the challenge also to the nonprofit open source world, we don't control who uses it. We don't control who builds it. All we can do is hope the spec does the right things, put it out there, publish it on GitHub, and hope people go, that's good. We're going to use it, right? And now that's starting to happen, and that flywheel is really exciting.
And as a nonprofit, you generally don't drop $20 million on a saturation billboard campaign in airports of Focus 1.3, now with extra AI. It'll be awesome. At FinOps X last June, this is the last time I really went in depth with this with a number of customers, because you get them all in the room and start talking about things, and eventually you run out of stories about kids and pets, and you start asking substantive things. The big complaint they all had was that the hyperscalers were doing this, but moving up the stack, the SaaS provider coverage was somewhat dismal. Yeah. Is that still the case? Are there trend shifts there? I confess I have not looked into this since last June. We need to soon for obvious reasons.
Turns out you have other things going on.
Yeah, right.
So right after we launched Focus, I went on a bike ride. I live in San Diego with I'm not going to say the company name, but you can probably figure it out. There's a very advanced FinOps practice down there at a big company with a guy who worked there, has been in FinOps for like a decade. And I was like, hey, you gotta check out this cool new Focus thing. Like 2 or 3 clouds are supporting it. He was like, I ingest data from 67 different types of spend into our reporting practice. I got a couple clouds. I got, data clouds. I got SaaS providers. They're all across the board. He was like, I have no use for what you're doing. And I kind of like, oh, bummer. We're not there. He was kind of right as to where this stuff needed to go and what we're seeing happen. So right now there's, there's 18 people supporting Focus maybe. But a year ago, there were like 3. Where we're seeing a lot of the uptick is not like we're twisting the arms of these cloud providers. It's all these longer tails of companies, SaaS providers, data cloud providers, like they're being asked by their customers, like, hey, we've got this great FinOps practice as managing our cloud with this really great billing data. We'd like to do the same with yours so that we can keep giving you more money. We need to show value from it. Can you maybe use this spec? Because if you use this spec, then we can just start ingesting your data. We can prove the value and it flows through. And what we're seeing with these new companies that are popping in, rather than what Amazon had to do, and we talk about this in the old FinOps book, which was like 10 years of iterations on getting through to the data before the data became the Kerr file, and that iterated, they can drop right in with like a blueprint that's open source, that's aligned, that they can get on GitHub and use for free.
The Kerr would not exist in its current form if the Focus spec had existed back then.
Well, the Kerr has a lot of stuff that Focus doesn't do, right? And it will probably for a lot of years. And it's not...
Skipping all of the cynical things I could say in response to that are accurate but a little too honest, Amazon is embracing...
Like cut to 2 hours later, they're still talking about the Kerr file. Yeah.
2 hours later. And finally, Amazon is thrilled to talk about this. They threw the FinOps Foundation head of the Focus spec, Matt Kausert. They threw the 2 of us on stage together at reInvent last year and gave us surprisingly few guardrails.
I was a little hurt that I didn't get picked to speak with you. I was like, dang it, they wanted Matt.
I lobbied for it, but at the same time, I don't know. Like I don't know how
that's why you've been very kind to let me come on your podcast.
Exactly.
So I get some stage time with you
this is the consolation prize. I suppose.
It totally is. It's like a dedicated hour with Corey.
No, what I have found though is that Amazon they do legitimately care what customers say, the smaller providers, which is basically everyone else, have to. So how legitimate that customer obsession focus is on those other folks is almost irrelevant because they have to do it. Where you've reached a tipping point where it is absolutely driving what needs to happen for serious enterprises. The coverage is increasing across the board. I think that we're now at a point where what version of the Focus spec are they supporting is the good conversation to have instead of what's the problem
right
spec?
Now too. Yes, is what version, because the problem we've realized in the space, and you probably heard it, and it was in the State of FinOps data, is now there's so many different providers and so many different versions that people are unclear how to put that data together, and not everyone was conformant to the actual versions. And so we had just announced, and we're working on the larger process, but a conformance program for this because Amazon's on 1.2. And they did good stuff with 1.2, which is they launched documentation for it. They kept 1.0 around in case you're using it. There's now one provider 1.3. We hear there's a bunch more coming as part of that. So one of the things we need to reconcile in the coming years is how to put that all together. Now, I'm going to do the twisting of the arm of the provider thing, which I think aligns to what you guys are doing. The coolest thing about 1.3 is actually most closely aligned to what I understand your company does, which is it gets into contract commitments, both allocating spend against them, helping you figure out burn downs, giving just a vehicle, a format to align what is basically rack rate cost and uses data to some form of negotiated agreement. I'm not going to say the 3-letter acronym.
Of course.
Some form of negotiated agreement. So right now, none of the major cloud providers support that 1.3. And I don't know the data well enough, I'm not speaking to anyone. I don't know if any of the major cloud providers currently make available a programmatic way to get access to that often complex and negotiated 3-letter agreement pricing agreement that they have.
In looking at large customer bills, I periodically have seen errors in the discounted pricing that look suspiciously like you would get if you type out something in Microsoft Excel, which tells me they don't have a whole lot of programmatic wisdom on the other side too. And this compounds. One of our customers said that their team negotiates 300 SaaS contracts every quarter. There is a massive explosion of this. So it's a target-rich environment, and they all have different pricing models, some of which are weirder than others. I do see usage-based and consumption-based pricing taking over at some point. Providers like it, and customers will accept it on some level. There's a lot to dislike about it, but I want to be clear that all pricing models are terrible. You have to find the one that sucks the least.
Yeah.
Like it's every time I would talk to people about my consulting work over years, they would think about it for half a second and then bust out with, you should charge a percentage of savings. To which my response was, oh my God, I hadn't considered this. This is going to change everything.
Years of that conversation for me too.
The least painful part we found there, flat rate. Everyone knows in advance what they're going to pay, and they love it. It's like the exact opposite of an AWS bill.
Well, companies like predictability, right? And that's where we go back to FinOps. This whole space is about predictably understanding your costs. And sometimes they'll take predictability over, I might be able to get a little less spent.
And it's counterintuitive, but the larger an environment gets, the more predictable it becomes. You tell me you're spending $80,000 a month on AWS. That could be anything in the universe, more or less. You tell me you're spending $400 million a year on AWS. I can tell you what your top 5 services are and what your architecture generally looks like without a whole lot. Because, maybe you have some skunkworks group that's doing something bizarre with document DB. Yeah, that's not going to be the number one driver of spend. It's going to be EC2, RDS, the usual suspects. The challenge there is that when you do have weird things, misconfigurations, it gets lost in the noise. Like if I steal your credentials and mine $100,000 resource worth of Bitcoin or whatnot, that gets lost there. Whereas on my $80,000 bill, that stands out from orbit.
Well, and I think that's hitting the point. I know are you just focused on AWS now? Or are you doing other cloud providers?
We are doing other cloud providers.
So you're going to have like last week in Oracle Cloud
you
newsletter,
joke.
Last week in Huawei Cloud newsletter?
I do have last week in Azure.com and have for years.
I'm shocked that hasn't come out yet. I've been waiting for years.
Which is a sign-up sheet. And I have one for last week in Oracle Cloud, which is written in the form of a cease and desist, because of course it is.
Okay.
Hey, any jackass can start a law firm, but it takes talent for that law firm to also make databases. Now, the Larry Ellison slander is necessary. It's my brand.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. I was profiled many years ago in the New York Times, and the closing comment, it was like, who is this wackadoo? Was the premise of the entire article.
You've had some amazing press over the years, by the way.
Honestly, it's because I don't know when to shut up.
It's very impressive.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And at the end, it's like I don't punch at individuals because it feels like it's punching down, but I make a special exception for Larry Ellison because, quote, nobody likes him. An Oracle spokeswoman did not respond to an email requesting comment on Mr. Ellison's popularity, is how they closed the article. And that is one of my favorite things I have ever read in the newspaper.
So as fun as it is, though, what we have seen happen in the last couple of years is that there are 4 legitimate cloud providers.
Oh, Oracle Cloud itself is an amazing product.
But selling into big companies, right?
Yes.
And this is the challenge, I think, where the contract stuff comes and where I was kind of asking about your scope and purview now, because we're finding that, you need the specialists in the area. But there's a rolling up that's happening, not just of your cloud providers, but with your SaaS providers, with your data center costs, with your AI spend, your OpenAI Anthropic, that's occurring, which is kind of the reason that, the focus spec is covering all these things, but we're also seeing, I think, an elevation. And this is actually one of the questions I had for you as well about your practice, 2-part. How are you looking at other areas? But also, how are you starting to get more integrated into the executive conversations when you're going in to talk about a $400 million bill negotiation? So is it 2-part? Is it across cloud? And what are the execs thinking?
Yes, it's cross cloud. And the trick, we're still coming at it from the old consulting approach where we have demonstrated expertise and value. And for us, the measure of a successful consulting engagement is the end of it. They say, hell yes, can we do it again? So we help them with an AWS negotiation or whatnot. And then hey, we're doing one with GCP or Azure, or we're thinking about using Oracle, but I don't know if I can provide the physical security for my kids necessary for that negotiation, et cetera, et cetera. And there's can you help us with this? And initially the answer was, well, that's not really what we focus on. Turned into, well, let's take a look and see what happens. Yeah. And that turned into, oh, there are patterns here too. But as a bootstrapped company, we were always let's stay on our lane and focus on the thing that we are best at.
It's smart. It's smart.
As a product, we have the option to expand that.
Congratulations on your fundraising, by the way.
I appreciate that.
That was cool to see. Yeah,
I am confident in the future of Oracle Cloud to some extent, and all the existing hyperscalers. I'm a little more reticent on the path of a lot of the neo clouds because in every case where they're providing GPU to these companies, folks aren't reaching for a neo cloud as option A. They're doing it when, well, AWS claims that there's cloud scales forever. It doesn't. Source, tried it. And okay, we need to go wherever the GPUs can be had. That feels like a temporary inflection.
Supply and demand sort of
10 years from now, you're telling me that not all the majors are not going to have access to enough GPUs for stuff? I question that.
Yeah. I mean, brass tacks on the additional vendors, though, as well. I mean, adding additional vendors into that mix also often helps with negotiation with existing vendors, right? So I have to imagine there's a lot of that happening with the companies as well.
And people get that wrong a lot, where they think the right way to negotiate is to pound the table and threaten to move your all in on AWS 15-year estate to another cloud provider, to which Amazon's corporate response is the version of bet. Because everyone threatens that.
Yeah.
They will fight.
It's like when you walk into the used car lot and you're like, I'm going to give you, and they're like, nah, we'll just,
Right. It has to be a credible argument if you're going to play that path.
I can feel both of us getting pulled though into the like all in on one cloud thing or the like, is there a best cloud? Maybe you're not, but my mind is going to this in the sense that I think what the reality has happened to the it depends thing you said earlier is that we're in this super multi-cloud world, not because like provider A, B, or C has like the better offering or better deals and better rates, but because business is complex. And what we hear most of the time where this complexity comes from is M&A activities, right? Somebody goes and buys some company. I had 2 clouds, now I have 3. I buy a company they come with. And then with that brings the people and skill sets, but it also then brings the integration of the concepts. And this is where to the naming things is hard. And the reason we're doing focus and the reason we kind of started the foundation was getting all the people managing the different types of technology together to talk and use the same language is what you need to get the trust. Because even in Amazon, like $1 is not $1. You got blended rate, you got unblended rate, you're going to amortize, unamortize, all these things. And so I think, the magic of what all this is and where I hope to see a lot of what you guys do and as it intersects with focus and we're seeing in the community is people just agreeing on the terms and terminologies and hopefully even against the providers between that. I said against, see, that's Freudian, between the providers, because what I don't think anybody's differentiating thing should be is like, are we best at finding the optimization opportunity, right? It should be like, are we the best at providing the service? So like we want to hopefully normalize a lot of that.
The bill is going to be what the bill is going to be. And by and large, the economic drivers, people are not picking a provider because it's 8% cheaper than another provider. Usually.
Generally. I hear some of that.
There are exceptions
There's more
to
commoditized
everything.
Stuff. But yes. And it's not about which, exactly.
I mean, honestly, I went from running my front end of my newsletter production system on AWS Amplify to Vercel as a paying customer. And the single reason
you know Vercel.
I do. I know Vercel very well.
I'm not nerdy enough to know.
And the single reason I did it is simultaneously makes no sense and all the sense at once is that I got tired of fighting with my AI assisted developer in Claude Code to convince it that I was using Amplify. It kept assuming I was on Vercel, and I got tired of that Sisyphean push the boulder back up the hill task every week.
Okay.
Which is probably a silly reason, but I'm probably not the only one either. I just do what the robot tells me.
Yeah. And billing's always the last thing that people want to pay attention to when they're building a product.
Oh, they pay a lot of attention to it right after they should have.
And the last thing we looked at was how to build our own billing system, even though we were looking at other billing systems, right? That's how it goes. So are you going to come back to San Diego in June?
Oh, I'll be there. I'll be there at FinOps X this year. I assume you will too. It's for you. It's sort of a command performance.
I'm debating. We'll see this year. Sure. No, it's great. It's our we kind of align our whole calendar year around it. We don't. I informally call it our fiscal year because it's like everything is leading up to X and everything's like before and after.
Unfortunately, that's how I feel about reInvent, and I wish I didn't. Some year I'm going to skip reInvent. It'll be amazing.
I've been promising that to myself and my family for like 12 years now, and but it's every time I go, we end up getting value. So it's tough.
If people want to learn more, or ideally, and they should attend FinOps X, where should they go?
There's a website. It's x.finops.org. But I think the thing that I always want to, for folks who've not been there before, well, ironically, the first reInvent, when we were starting our conference, I went and watched the first keynote from the first reInvent. And Jassy stood on stage and he goes, this is not a sales and marketing conference. That was in his opening keynote. And so I've actually adopted that phrase, but I mean it, I think, a little bit more.
Well, they meant it at the time.
They meant it.
And then the economics sort of got away from that. And one earnings call during the pandemic, they mentioned it was a down quarter because they didn't have the boost of reInvent ticket sales. It was, oh my stars.
But that's what I like to say is a little bit special about our conference, which is we're not trying to get you to buy more cloud or anything else there. We're trying to get you together with your peers to like not just get better at your job, but to be able to talk about the thing that I mean, we just nerded out on some stuff that most people could care less about.
This is what I love about
this
FinOps
conversation, right?
Like,
and, yeah.
During the raise, one of our hard problems talking to some investors was the fact that their question was, why is this a hard problem? The bill says what it says and then you pay it.
Hasn't Amazon just solved this?
Exactly.
They're going to solve it.
It's an entire problem that so much the world doesn't know exists. And if you start talking about this at a cocktail party, you're asked to leave.
Oh yeah. I hate it when people ask me what I do at cocktail parties.
Oh, I just lie. It's faster.
Yeah. Okay, great. Oh, that's nice. But what do you do for a day job? No, I'm never mind.
We're saving the cloud whales.
Yeah.
No.
I really want to say, like, and I from the bottom of my heart mean this, like I'm honored that you had me here and that you actually come and participate in our conference, because I'll let you know I at one point I thought of you as a nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
And you, through our good friend Rick Oakes,
came
to me at reInvent and sat down and broke the ice. And have you read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek?
Not yet.
So he talks in there about moving people from nemesis to worthy rivals. And a worthy rival is one who has a bunch of skills that you don't have, who's probably in the same space, who makes you better because you watch them go and operate. And you're like, gosh, dang it. And I was like, that Corey's so good at getting the press and doing these things. And, he's smart and he's funny. But I shifted my thinking around you, and you've like turned out to be like a lovely, sweet human being who has a great public snark, persona into that. And so I'm honestly like grateful that you've had me here, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better.
Thank you. And again, we stand at different spaces in the universe. Like there is zero chance of me starting a nonprofit. I assure you that.
I would have said that 7-8 years ago too.
Yeah, at some point when my actions start casting aspersions on groups larger than me and causing problems for others, it's okay. I need to be a little more careful at how I say these things these days. It's at some point of scale, I'm no longer a fit, and I start transitioning over to the liability side. So it keeps things interesting, but I'm looking forward to seeing what's next, which is FinOps X in June.
It is. And yeah, I'm excited to see you there and hear what happens with Skyway and your everything else.
More to come, and watch this space.
All right.
Thank you so much for taking the time, JR. I
Thanks,
appreciate it. JR Storment, Executive Director of the FinOps Foundation. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and this is Screaming in the Cloud. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Whereas if you've hated this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, along with an angry comment, but make sure it's written in the right focus standard so that we can internalize it and maybe take action on it someday.